Hello and welcome to the Second Tier Podcast. I'm Ryan Dilks and I'm joined by the unblurred window in the Amsterdam booth to my blurred window. It's Justin Peach.
Good day to Ryan.
The worst story I've ever heard in my life. We'll begin with a question for you, Justin. If that's all right, what connects Neil Warnock, Sean Dyche and A.D. Boothroyd, aside from football managers, of course?
Do they love a bit of the industrial football? Are they big fans of the Industrial Revolution? I'll lean towards there.
They might be. That's not the one I've got written down in front of me, though. The answer is they're the only other managers in Championship history to have won 32 points or more from their first 13 games prior to Enzo Maresca with Leicester City. A.D. Boothroyd, yes. There's definitely a white sheep amongst the rest of the clan here, isn't there? Interestingly, though, Justin, none of those three managers went on to win the league in those seasons. Will Enzo Maresca and Leicester also fail to win the league? No. Welcome to the #1 Championship podcast, the Second Tier. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. Yes, we've had a round of midweek games in the Championship for us to nibble over, Justin and I. So we'll go through all of that, including another loss for Wayne Rooney at Birmingham City. We'll get onto that very, very shortly. We'll also talk about the record-breaking Foxes later on in the show. And then we'll finish off with Scott High or Ryan Lowe right at the end of things. So let's kick things off with Wayne Rooney. And it's now 2 losses from 2 for the new Birmingham manager. The latest coming at home to Hull, who won 2-0. The Birmingham players were booed off after this defeat. Rooney's first game in front of the St Andrews faithful. No Fear football is going really well, isn't it, Justin?
I really hoped you'd sort of lean straight into that, because this is the definition of fair football, I guess, because they can't keep hold of the ball. They get the ball and they are terrified, the Birmingham players, that is, terrified to play it out from the back, mainly because they haven't been doing it for, I'm trying to think back to the last manager who maybe did it in a Birmingham shirt. Was it Gianfranco Zola?
I was going to say probably Zola. Look how that went.
That went well. This isn't a sort of an ego thing or us bigging ourselves up, but this is a clear factor of Wayne Rooney not fitting a style of play that the players that he's come in to manage have been playing for several times. He's trying to change things too soon. And this was a clear case. There were so many opportunities, or not opportunities, but scenarios last night or in midweek where the Birmingham players gave the ball away from trying to play it out from the back. The first goal they gave away, Longello, under John Eustace, Longello would have probably put his foot on the ball and played it into the channel or played it out wide, but it was recycled back to the goalkeeper, or recycled back to Delap in this case, in which he then scored. Christian Bielik was under pressure to try and play it out from the back. He's not been doing that for 18 months either. So there are clear issues that Wayne Rooney needs to iron out, and he even said post-game that the players aren't comfortable with the way he wants to play. It's a big problem that he needs to adjust, and I think he's trying to change too much too soon, which lends into his inexperience. But Carrick last season tried to keep things quite simple and similar to what Chris Wilder was doing and got results. So, yeah, it's not ideal start for Wayne Rooney at all.
No, it's definitely not. And this doesn't do much to dispel the conspiracy theories that Liam Rosenior was the brains behind the operation.
Yeah, there you go.
And he was Wayne Rooney's assistant at Derby, does it? They were just so sloppy on the ball, and essentially every Hull chance came from Birmingham losing possession. I mean, if it happens every so often, then it's an individual error. But when it happened as regularly as it did, you feel like it's something more. And I do agree, Justin, he probably is trying to change too much too soon. We needed a good start to prove that the owners were right in making this bold decision in sacking John Eustace, bringing in Wayne Rooney, but 2 losses in a row now. Admittedly, I think this was better than the loss to Middlesbrough. They only had 5 shots against Middlesbrough, and it was just poor. They had a bit more of efforts on goal against Hull, but Hull had only won 1 in 7 prior to this. And we've been hinting before about how difficult Birmingham's first few games are under Wayne Rooney. This is their most winnable game up until the next international break. The next 3 games are Southampton, Ipswich and Sunderland. And there's a very real chance Rooney could lose his first 5 games in charge of Birmingham City. And if that happens, I don't know where that leaves Rooney as a manager or this ownership, because the fans will not be happy.
No, I think it's the matter of the way they've been losing, or the way they've lost the last 2 games. It's the most disappointing thing of how poor defensively they've been and how blunt they have been going forward as well. But you are right; those next few games coming up are important to at least get results, to at least show that you're not. I mean, the John Eustace sides weren't giving away too many chances, and now they are. It's really uncomfortable to watch, and I think Wayne Rooney will need time to get things right. You can't expect him to be perfect after 2 weeks, but I also expected him to at least be a little bit more pragmatic in his approach and not try and stamp his authority straight on the style of playing with this team, because it's just not working. So next game, Southampton needs to adjust things. If he does, might get a result, might not, but at least we need to see a performance to at least convince us that he's the right appointment.
Yeah, because we've definitely not had that so far, have we? But it's just Hull's second win in 8 games. They have drawn most of those games in that time. But the only other 2 teams to lose fewer games than them this season are Ipswich and Leicester, which isn't a bad record, is it? And you, of course, boldly had them in your top 6 at the start of the season, Justin. You must be feeling quite encouraged about them doing that after these first 13 games.
I am encouraged. I'm not really surprised, though, because I think, again, turning it back to Birmingham, Hull are probably where Birmingham want to be at some point. And you've got to remember that Rossini's been in charge at Hull for almost a year now. And he's done a fantastic job. And it's just this approach where they are quite patient in possession, but they also have electric players to break forwards quickly. And they showed that time and time again against Birmingham. So there's that nice ability to change things up when they need to. But you are right, they're drawing games. I think that's the only thing that just make me a little bit uncomfortable with that prediction, is the fact that they do need to take the game to opposition a little bit more often to turn those draws into wins. But I think it's an evolving process. They've got a young side as well. So yeah, things are looking up, and it's a big win because, as you say, things got a little bit bumpy over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it is an evolving kind of thing, isn't it? We weren't expecting Hull to necessarily. It's not like if Hull didn't get in the top 6 this season, then that was it. It's the end of the revolution as we know it, because it's going to take time, especially with Liam Rosenior, who's still a young coach, of course. What he's just doing a sterling job. And the fact that they have drawn so many games recently obviously isn't ideal, but it shows that they're a really tough side to beat. And when only Ipswich and Leicester are the only 2 sides that have lost fewer games than you, that's pretty good going, really. But he's getting the best out of some really talented players, isn't he? I mean, Jayden Philogene has been excellent so far in a Hull City shirt since joining for big money in the summer. Liam Delap looks like he's starting to show signs of the player that we saw early on in his career when he was at Man City before a disappointing season last season at both Preston and Stoke. And then other lads as well. I mean, Jacob Greaves is a top player. Regan Slater's been really good so far as well. Adama Traore is someone I'm quite keen to see more of. So it's all going really well for Hull, and I don't think it's be all and end all if they don't get in the playoffs this season. I think it's just part of the process. You've got to trust the process at Hull with Liam Rosenior, and I certainly trust it, Justin, and I imagine you do too.
I trust Liam Rosenior. I trust the process. Not much else more to add to that, other than very trustworthy process that is going on at Hull City right now.
If you were to do a trust fall with a certain championship manager, how high would Liam Rosenior be up in that ranking?
Liam Rosenior would be top, because Liam Rosenior would catch me and then stroke my hair afterwards and tell me nice things about myself, because that's the sort of man he is. It's just it.
Yeah. Gareth Ainsworth, on the other hand, would drop you and apologise for it, but blame someone else. Speaking of which, goals from Brandon Thomas-Asante and Grady Diangana saw West Brom beat QPR 2-0. QPR were down to 10 men for the final half hour of this one. However, they only managed 1 shot in the entire 90 minutes. Not 1 shot on target, just 1 attempt in general. And it continues to pile the pressure on Gareth Ainsworth, with this being their 5th loss in a row. And there's great risk that we'll repeat ourselves here, Justin, but it just can't go on. can it? And this is incredibly harsh to say, but has there ever been a more obvious case of a manager needing replacing than this? I can't remember, apart from maybe Mark Fotheringham last season at Huddersfield. There aren't really too many standout occasions where a change has just been so blatantly needed.
I think you've only got to look at the output of particular players to identify the fact that Ainsworth just isn't the right man for the squad. I will die on the hill that QPR have a good enough squad to be more competitive than they are being right now, because one shot on goal against the West Brom team, who are a good side, but you at least expect a team, you at least expect to lay a glove on them, and they just didn't. And you are right, we do risk repeating ourselves because things are not improving. They don't look like they're improving, and it's really hard to see a way out for QPR under Gareth Ainsworth. They need to find a solution very quickly, and the solution, unfortunately, doesn't seem like it's Gareth Ainsworth. I was thinking about it quite deeply last night in that he's a bit like a gluten-free pizza, Gareth Ainsworth. He fills a certain objective, but you never choose it, do you? You'll never have a gluten-free pizza, will you, Ryan?
Unless you're, of course, a celiac.
Of course, but that's what I mean. It fills an objective for certain people, but you'll never choose it because it's not very nice. And Gareth Ainsworth...
Are we saying Wickham are the celiacs here?
I guess so, yeah. And it works for them, and it might work for another team, but it's not working for this QPR side. Simple.
Yeah. An interesting metaphor, but I certainly get where you're coming from. And it's that time of, again, Justin, where we have to highlight something mental that Gareth Ainsworth has said. He said in the first half, the plan was working.
No.
They didn't have a shot in the first half.
No.
Admittedly, they hadn't conceded at that point, and I assume that's what he meant. But it's painful that you got a good team with some very good creative players in it, and the game plan is simply to park the bus and eventually concede anyway, because it could be a lot better, couldn't it?
It could be a lot better. It could be miles better. You could have a shot on target, for God's sake, if you've got a different manager. That's the low bar that's now been set, and it's really hard to see Gareth Ainsworth convincing anybody that he's going to be the right man. Unfortunately, it's spiraled out of his control. It spiraled out of his control last season, and certain things papered over the cracks. But this house that QPR have built under Gareth Ainsworth is the foundations are gone. There's cracks in the walls. You need to demolish and go again, because unfortunately, the only solution now is, or it's not the only solution, the only outcome at the moment of Gareth Ainsworth in charge is being cut adrift in the bottom three.
Yeah. And QPR were top of the Championship this time last year. Always bears repeating. They had just beaten Wigan 2-1 at that point, and 6 of the 10 outfield players who started in that game are still at the club now, which shows it doesn't have to be as bad as this. Yes, a lot has changed since then, but the football can be a lot better, and then results might be a lot better. Mark Warburton, for example, just over a year and a half ago, was getting a tune out of QPR quite successfully, as was Mick Beale. And the team isn't that different, but we're just stuck with this, where the plan is seemingly park the bus, try not to concede, and then hoof it up to Lyndon Dykes or into a channel somewhere. The thing is, though, the reports I'm seeing are suggesting QPR might be sticking with Gareth Ainsworth for now, which just seems to be the equivalent of drinking bleach at this point.
What's that mean where that person sticks a stick through their spokes on their bike? It's just that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's incredible. They're just sticking sticks through their own spokes on their bike, and unfortunately, it's self-sabotage, because I don't want to laugh at the situation, but from an outside point of view, from a neutral perspective, it's laughable that QPR see Gareth Ainsworth as the man, because QPR fans are very passionate supporters, and they've been vehemently speaking out on the situation. And it's just a dire situation that the club find themselves in, because when you're not willing to get rid of a manager who's so blatantly poor for your squad, you're not in a good spot.
No, they are definitely not. And you get the sense that there's a lack of a footballing head behind the scenes, especially now Les Ferdinand has gone, because I'm not sure Les Ferdinand, even though he got plenty of criticism from QPR fans, would have let this carry on, because it's just so blatantly obvious that something needs to change. A great result for West Brom, of course. Wednesday marked the first year anniversary of Carlos Corberán as West Brom manager. So with that being said, Justin, how would you sum up the job he's done in that time?
The right direction. I think I'll say they're going in the right direction. It's been steady. There's been a fair few speed bumps along the way, but that's natural. But he's had to contend with quite a lot. There's been a lot of injuries, a relatively poorly balanced squad, losing key players like Dara O'Shea, for example, having to reduce the wage bill, and of course a dreadful absent owner and the threat of, well, not threat, but a lot of uncertainty over the future of the football club, which is still not been resolved, by the way. But he's still been getting results, and he's still kept West Brom within that top six. Of course, he took it to the last game last season, which was fantastic. And again, they're hovering there or thereabouts this season. I expect him to, even though I think we predicted him to be 15th. But again, the fact that Corberán is able to overachieve consistently is speaking of the quality of the manager he is. And again, I still don't think West Brom have hit top gear yet. And I back them to continue to tick along under the radar and head in that right direction under Corberán.
I think that's a fair assessment, Justin, but I'll probably go a bit further than that. I think he's done a cracking job that's gone a bit under the radar. It's easy to forget how awful they were when Corberán took over, not just under Steve Bruce, but also Valérien Ismaël. I mean, when Corberán took over, they had won just 2 of their first 16 games. They're in the relegation zone and ended up finishing in the top 10. And that job was probably overshadowed by the work of other managers last season, but it's still brilliant. And then this season, they're ticking along very nicely, despite, as we know, everything that's going on off the pitch. And the fact that they didn't really strengthen at all in the transfer window. In fact, we ranked them as having, what was it, the 3rd or 4th worst transfer window. That's just because I think they did the least business out of all Championship clubs in the summer. They lost Dara O'Shea, which is obviously a huge blow. Didn't really replace him. They brought in the likes of Josh Maja, Jeremy Sarmiento, neither of whom have particularly played too much so far, but they're just ticking along very nicely, and they're playing very much like Corberán's Huddersfield. Really solid defensively. They've kept 6 clean sheets in the last 8 games, which is quite impressive. Maybe not the most productive going forwards, but they've been creating enough during games. And as I say, ticking over very nicely. It wouldn't surprise me if they're in the playoff conversation come the end of the season, which I don't think I would have given them any chance of doing pre-season. And that's ultimately down to Carlos Corberán, who is just a very good manager, doing a very good job in difficult circumstances off the pitch. Norwich 1, Middlesbrough 2. 6 wins in a row now for Middlesbrough. 6! That's more consecutive wins than they managed at any point last season. I need to remind you that they finished 3rd last season, not far from the top 2. They've even overtaken Sunderland now, which seems a bit mad considering how those two started the season. But they have just been simply irresistible in recent weeks, haven't they?
They've been fantastic. They've been fantastic. Carrick 2.0 is up and running, and quite rightly so. I think, believe it or not, I think the board and Kieran Scott, whoever's making decisions at Middlesbrough, do deserve a lot of credit for sticking with Carrick. And I know it was an inconceivable potential decision to get rid of him, but I'm sure owners of past would have pulled the trigger after what was a dismal start. But looking down into the stats and looking at this game again, they really have been irresistible. And you only got to look at the volume of chances they've been creating in games. If you look at the basics, they've beaten their opponents on XG in 9 games so far this season, which is quite impressive. And it tells you how comfortable they are and how consistent they are at getting into good goal scoring areas. And they were doing the same against Norwich, and they've been doing the same all season. They just lack that goal scoring touch. Still do a little bit, but I think it will come for certain players like Coburn and Nate Laff. But you go back to that Sheffield Wednesday game, that draw away at Hillsborough, I think that was a turning point for the team. And that's probably where the penny dropped, because that's where form started to prop up. And now they're rolling. And we saw last season, previous history will tell us that they're very hard to stop once they get going. And I still think they've got gears to go, which is the frightening thing. I just hope that expectation doesn't shoot up too much, because I still think this team is like a lot of teams still think they're evolving.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's going to be tricky the next few games, because it's going to be a real test with them having a bit of an injury crisis. Tommy Smith's now been ruled out for the rest of the season with an Achilles injury. That's a blow considering he played so much last season. They're also missing Riley McGree, Dara Lenihan, Marcus Force, other players who were really important for them last season too, as well as a couple of other players. Hayden Hackney's also suspended for the weekend. So it's a real test of their depth as a squad. However, on the other hand, they've got loads of players in excellent form. Sam Greenwood in particular has been flying recently. And then just in general, they've been really blowing teams away during this 6-game run, haven't they? It's not like they've been scraping past teams. It's been pretty comfortable. And considering they were not getting results earlier in the season, but playing well, it's quite the contrast now. So it's really exciting. And you've got to say they're looking a lot more like the promotion contenders people thought they would be this season. And I completely agree with you, sticking with Michael Carrick. I don't think he was ever in actual danger of getting sacked, but it could have happened. And keeping faith with him and sticking with the idea that he's the man to take them forwards into the future, I think Middlesbrough deserve a bit of respect on that account as well. It seems like Norwich fans, though, have lost patience with David Wagner. 6 losses in 9 league games. And I tell you what, that good start to the season feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
I was going to say, they looked great in August, looked absolutely fantastic. And
they did,
probably would.
We were saying that, weren't we? Yeah, probably the best team in the league. It was a close one between them and Ipswich, but Norwich probably just edged it. And now look at them.
Yeah, and you do have to go back to the fact that injuries to key attacking personnel did pile up, and they came at the wrong time. But I said it at the weekend, and it's the same again in this game. They were too easy to slice open, and it's consistently happening without it being remedied, and that's a big problem for Wagner. And you are right. Questions are being asked of him, and I think that's absolutely fair. There's some interesting substitutions being made as well, but he has also been sweeping up from poor transfer windows and a poor managerial appointment in Dean Smith. So that's just sort of playing both hands there. But I think the club might benefit from a fresh start away from Stuart Webber, which may ultimately mean Wagner's going to lose his job. But I think if he can get the team more solid through the middle and stop them conceding chances so consistently and so easily, then results might turn. But at the moment, the same issues have been arising since mid-September onwards that haven't been addressed, and that's a big worry.
Well, it's a massive worry. I'm incredibly concerned about how leaky at the back they've suddenly become. They've now let in the joint most goals in the division, when early on in the season, when they were playing so well, they were brilliant defensively and going forwards. But that just seems so far away now. And as I've kept saying repeatedly, they're so incredibly reliant on Gabriel Sara, and that's essentially it. If he doesn't play well, then Norwich don't play well, and this was a good example of that one here. I mean, David Wagner seemed like a strange appointment when he was made. It seemed like the sporting director, Stuart Webber, was picking the easy option and giving his old mate the job, and he's never looked convincing for a prolonged period of time, has he? He's had spells where he's made Norwich look like they could be getting back to their best, but it's just not lasted long. And this is why I had my big doubts about them at the start of the season. And here they are, back in the bottom half of the Championship again. It looks very unlikely that they'll stick with Wagner all season. The obvious question is, when do they pull the trigger? Because the added complication here is you've got the new sporting director coming in at the end of next month. So do you wait until then to sack Wagner? Because there's a few games to be played until then, and they could be costly if if Norwich don't make a decision.
I think that's a really interesting conundrum they find themselves in, because, like I said, I don't think Stuart Webber certainly should not be making a decision on who the next manager is going to be, but I still think that Wagner deserves a little bit of time to get things right. But like you said, how much time is that? Is it a case of the first decision the new sporting director has got to make is to whether to change the manager or not? It's a big one. But if results and performances mainly continue as they are, then Wagner doesn't have a lot of time, and the new sporting director coming in will have a big decision to make.
Yeah, well, he will have a big decision to make anyway, won't he? I suppose, do you think that in a way it's quite a good position for the sporting director to be in, to be able to choose his new manager straight away?
I was just thinking,
it's quite a nice thing, isn't it, really? Because you get a clean slate.
There's that, but also your first decision coming into a big job, do you want it to be to sack the manager or to decide whether the grass should be 3 millimeters longer than it currently is? I'd rather go to the easy decision. But you are right. The big decision, I mean, the grass being longer isn't going to have an impact, have much of an impact on the team as a new manager would. But
great analysis by us on the second tier here.
But do you know what I mean? Though you don't want to have to make that big decision because it's a lot of pressure on your shoulders, because it's ultimately going to decide the outcome of the season, whether it's going to be a good appointment or bad appointment. We've seen QPR last season make bad appointment after bad appointment. We've seen several teams do it as well. Last season, we saw Norwich do it last season as well.
I think it would be a good thing, though, Justin, because we keep saying Norwich need a big reset. If Ben Napper, the new sporting director, when he comes in, he gets to choose his own manager, then that's a great way to start the big reset, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's November. You don't want your big reset to happen just before a January transfer window where it's incredibly difficult to recruit. You want it to be happening in the summer, ideally, but I guess this just lines up with that stupidly long notice period that Stuart was seeing out. But yeah, for me, I think Wagner deserves time, and if he can convince the new sporting director that he's the man, then so be it. But I don't think the first decision he should be making should be whether to sack a manager or not.
I'm not sure I agree Wagner deserves time. I do think, though, it would be quite foolish of Norwich to sack Wagner in the coming days and then appoint someone else before the new sporting director comes in, because that wouldn't make any sense at all, would it? But it would be interesting to see how this pans out. A bad day at the office for Leeds. They were beaten 1-0 away at Stoke. Patrick Bamford skied a 75th minute penalty, and minutes later, Pascal Struijk scored the only goal in his own goal, which gave Stoke the win. I was a bit surprised Bamford took that penalty, Justin.
Yeah, it was a poor penalty. I did tweet that, or X, whatever, that's what you get for wearing gloves on a Wednesday night in Stoke.
You think that played a part, do you?
I do, actually. I do, because I get really warm when I'm running around, and my hands get quite clammy and sweaty, and ultimately I think that's going to impact how when you lean back, his whole body's going to fall back because there's extra weight in his hands, and ultimately he's going to sky the penalty. I just think he was unsettled by the clamminess of his hands because he's wearing gloves when he shouldn't do. But more to the serious point, the fact that he's missed his last couple of penalties, really poor penalties, and he side-footed this, it just didn't look like a confident run-up at all. I'm not an expert penalty taker by any means, but he just didn't look confident. But if Leeds don't have anybody to come in and take one, then so be it. But yeah, it just wasn't a confident penalty, and it was a big moment in the game because it changed it in Stoke's favour massively into that last 15 minutes, and I think that's why they won the game. If Bamford obviously scores that, I think Leeds take the 1-0 win back to Ellen Road. But crowd got up, players got up, yeah, atmosphere went up. Leeds were rocked.
Yeah, they definitely looked rocked. I found it a bit strange in general that Daniel Farke took off Joel Pirro for Bamford when his side are looking for a goal. It's got to be said, Bamford's confidence certainly seems very low right now. Hence why it was quite surprising he took the penalty in the first place. In all seriousness, though, a result like this doesn't do much good for championship neutrals like us who want a promotion race, does it? Leeds remain third, but are now 9 points off Ipswich already. And Ipswich have got a game in hand. And this is why they're going to have to show some incredible consistency for the remainder of the season, aren't they?
Well, this is what I was alluding to at the start of the season is Leeds are going to they're going to have a slow start, which ultimately gives the other teams ahead of them a head start. But I don't think anyone would have expected both Leicester and Ipswich to be so ruthlessly brilliant and consistent with their results. But you are right; it's going to have to be a monumental run of form between now and the end of the season. But we have seen it with Daniel Farke at Norwich. It's just whether or not they can be aggressively clinical when they need to be in front of goal, because that's been an issue in some games. I go back to the Sheffield Wednesday game at home, but they just didn't show enough in that final third, and they didn't quite show enough in this game either. Because I think Stoke's game plan worked quite nicely, and they had some of the better chances in a game that was filled with relative half chances. But yeah, I think that ability to be ruthless, aggressively ruthless and clinical in front of goal is I think that's letting them down. And if they can get that right, then I do back them to go on a run that will run it close. But you are right. There's a lot of ground that needs to be made up.
Yeah, there certainly is. Back-to-back wins for Stoke. Alex Neil very much easing the pressure on himself after being very much under it after the last international break. Wins against Sunderland and Leeds. Not bad, is it? Considering how poor they were looking before the international break. I don't think they've been particularly incredible during these two wins, but, wins are wins. And Alex Neil will certainly take that considering the position he was in. Justin, let's take a quick break. After that, we'll talk about more wins for Leicester and Ipswich. God, they're so greedy. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. And Leicester City won again. A James Justin goal saw them beat Sunderland 1-0. It's all getting a bit boring now, isn't it? They've become the first championship side ever to win 12 of their first 13 games. They're just ridiculously good, aren't they? Top of the league, and you'll do well to find many sane championship fans who don't think they'll go on to get promoted as things stand. Here's a question for you, Justin. Of course, they have been simply irresistible so far. I don't think anyone's denying that. But if you had to pick the biggest weakness in this Leicester team, what would it be?
You're asking me to find faults in a faultless team.
Essentially, yes.
Incredible. Right, let me dig deep. Tea person putting the tea and coffee together might make a weak tea and coffee. That will ultimately damage morale. Nothing like a bad cup of tea or coffee sets me up for a bad day. Maybe if I look at the numbers, they could take the first 30 minutes of games a bit more seriously as the last 30 minutes. Just looking at the percentage of goals, 26% of goals scored in the first 30 compared to 56% in the last 30. Maybe make it easier for themselves by coming out of the traps early and getting an early goal. Other than that, it's incredibly difficult to find faults in a team that's been so brilliant and ruthlessly efficient, because the games aren't even like edged or poised. It's just Leicester slowly getting control, and then they've got you, and then that's it. The game's away from you. You've lost. Sorry. See you. Simple.
That is it, isn't it? And you talk about the first, 30 minutes or so. It's kind of like a cat when it finds a bird in the garden. It's just like pawing around with it and just teasing it before eventually killing it, isn't it? And you're just scraping the barrel when it comes to weaknesses with this team. Of course, the issue that we kept flagging up at the start of the season was that they weren't playing too well, but still winning. And now they are playing well and have just seemingly been getting better and better. And that's scary that they've been doing that despite winning 12 of their first 13. I thought maybe up front they could be better, because I don't think Vardy or Iheanacho have been amazing so far. But having said that, they've scored a combined 9 goals, which is as many as QPR have scored this season. So, I mean, Enzo Maresca, if you asked him what weakness they've got, he'd probably say not having a left-footed player at left back. But since Callum Doyle got injured, they've played 5 games, won all 5 with an aggregate score of 13-2. So clearly not affected them that much. So what's the biggest weakness? There isn't one, really, is there? That's the lesson here. You'd have thought something must crop up as the season goes on, but it's difficult to see anything that could possibly derail them as things stand.
The only thing I can maybe see derailing, Leicester being derailed is a mass injury crisis or a mass.
Justin, I don't think even that will affect them, because they've got so much squad depth. You look at some of the players who haven't started as many games. I mean, Hamza Chowdhury is a quality player, I think, who would be getting into just about every other team in the Championship, but has not really featured so far. He's just one player I'm picking out off the top of my head. You could go through plenty more. It's just the ridiculous amount of squad depth as well. So anything, come on, give us something, Leicester.
A dodgy lasagna on a Friday night before a game. Maybe.
But that would just be one game, Justin. Or maybe a couple of games. Food poisoning is a vicious beast, isn't it? But I think aside from a mass injury crisis or a dodgy lasagna, I can't really see anything stopping Leicester as things stand.
The only way to beat Leicester is to hope there's a dodgy lasagna.
It's to spike their food. That's it. That's your best tactic, lads. Go on. I was having a look at their fixtures. They have still not played any of the bottom 3 either, which is pretty insane, isn't it? Having said that, they're still not. Go on.
I was going to say the Championship gods rubbing their hands here.
Oh, yeah. If there's ever going to be a proper Championship shithousing, then it could be in one of those games. Having said that, they've still not played Leeds at Ipswich yet. Leicester v Ipswich on the Boxing Day. Oh, juicy. Having said that, that is still quite far away. So, yeah, it could still be quite a while until we see Leicester drop any points. Speaking of which, a Nathan Broadhead goal saw Ipswich continue their remarkable start. They won 1-0 away at Bristol City. They remain second, 5 points off Leicester with a game in hand. Ipswich are the first promoted side in any English League division to win 10 of their opening 12 league games. The Ipswich is going up tractor. Isn't slowing down, Justin, mate. you've reluctantly got on board, but unfortunately for you, it's getting too fast for you now to even consider getting off.
Yeah, I'd be at risk of serious harm, wouldn't I, if I jumped off now? So yeah, no choice other than to stay on it. And to be honest with you, games like this do remind you that Ipswich are a good side because they had to grind it out at times. You only got to, and you need that element of luck as well. You only got to look at the Harry Cornick shot which dribbled across the line, and it was a great goal line clearance. I can't remember who it was from who cleared it off the line, but it was you're a divot away from conceding an equaliser. But good teams have that on their sides, and ultimately they did. And I know Bristol City did create some decent opportunities, but which were just really good. The way they moved the ball, the way they're intertwined with each other in terms of the passing sequences. It's all there on a plate, and they are a good side. They're not winning by fluke. They're winning by being a very incredibly well drilled outfit, and that's credit to Kieran McKenna again.
Yeah. I mean, how often do we have to praise the job that Kieran McKenna's doing? It's just ridiculous, isn't it? And you're right. I think Leicester have kind of been blowing teams away recently, and Ipswich have not had too many games in my mind where they have blown teams away, but it's just efficiently, grinding teams down, isn't it? And what you'll often find in games is they'll just limit opposition teams to enough, to a minuscule amount of chances, and then just create enough chances up the other end to get them past the opposition, and that's all they ultimately have to do. And they're playing some beautiful football along the way. Let's not take that away from them, but it doesn't look like it's showing any signs of stopping. And going on back to what you were saying, you make your own luck at the end of the day, don't you? I mean, Gareth Ainsworth will do all he can to moan about referees, but as I say, you make your own luck, and if you give the referee the opportunity to, give a decision against you, then it's going to cost you.
Quick question:
Go on.
Are you more impressed with Kieran McKenna's job or Enzo Maresca's job?
Kieran McKenna's, without doubt.
Easy.
Yeah.
Any reason why?
Well, look at the players. Simple as that. Leicester have got probably, definitely one of the strongest squads we've ever seen at this level, isn't it? Yeah. I think I don't want to take anything away from Enzo Maresca, because of course he's doing a fantastic job. It's a lot easier said than done, turning this Leicester team into the ruthless machine that it's been. But Kieran McKenna has simply got Ipswich, a newly promoted side, as one of the best teams in the division, one of the best teams we've actually ever seen at this level after 12 games, and playing as well as this. And the number of players he's got playing above their level is just insane. I mean, I keep going back to Massimo Luongo, who was a free agent back in January when Ipswich signed him up, having been signed up for Middlesbrough for a couple of months, wasn't he? And then being thrown out with the garbage, and now he's turned him into one of the best midfielders in the division this season. He's the obvious example there, but the likes of Nathan Broadhead, Connor Chaplin, I mean, go through the whole squad basically, and everyone's just playing above their level, and that's why the job that he's been doing, not on a massive budget by Championship standards either, is just so remarkable. And that's why I'll continue to praise him and bow down to him in my little shrine in the back of the room as much as I can, Justin.
That's the wrong
Do you agree?
guy,
Do you agree? Do you think?
I do agree. I do agree. Yeah. Again, it's not a slight on Maresca, but the fact that McKenna's got a smaller budget, they've just come up from League One, and you're quite right. He's got players playing way above their level, and they're keeping stride with Leicester, although I don't think it will be close come the end of the season. Within 5 points in a game in hand, it's quite an incredible outcome at the moment for Ipswich. Kieran McKenna deserves a lot of praise, and certainly more impressed with him than Enzo Maresca. But again, you've only got to look at the squad's finances, etc., to make that judgment.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not sure I necessarily agree with you on how close it will be at the end of the season, because as things stand, I could quite easily see Leicester breaking the points record. That's a discussion for another day. But the way things are going, it's getting that way, isn't it? But I don't think Ipswich will be, miles off. It's just about how much they have a dip at some point this season, which I think will happen, but I don't think it's going to be a massive drop-off, I've got to say. A bit of an eye-catching result, Huddersfield 0, Cardiff 4. This comes just after I said Huddersfield were proving to be a difficult team to beat at the weekend. But a great result for Cardiff, their first win in 4. What a free kick by Perry NG, and he's someone who's had a cracking start to the season, isn't he?
Yeah, he's been fantastic. Again, probably one of the best right-backs in the division. And I think it was, we go back to last season. Did he take his first free kick last season when he scored it in a
Yeah,
match?
I was going to say, I remember him scoring a beautiful free kick last season, and I think that may have been his first Cardiff goal.
Yeah, but I vaguely remember the story behind it. He just was staying behind to take some set pieces and found it was good. I might be wrong, but I remember the story being quite nonchalant and him being quite nonchalant about it. And now he's pulling off these absolute worldies while being a cracking defender at the same time. What an asset. I can't think of too many defenders or too many fullbacks who were incredible at free kicks. And also a fullback, Roberto Carlos, springs to mind. But not making a comparison, but I'm just saying.
I was going to say.
Just saying there's a potential there for some relation, for some relatability there. But yeah, it was a great free kick, and it capped off a wonderful evening for Cardiff, and they've been ticking over incredibly well under Earl Bullock.
Yeah, and some of the replays of that free kick as well, watching it just curl in, it was beautiful, bending like NG. And I've always associated him with being someone who's a great defender, not necessarily so good going forwards, but I think he's shown a bit more of that this season. And he's been excellent so far for Cardiff. I think Errol Bullock has taken his game to a new level. It's great to see. I think Bullock's actually done that with a couple of players. I mean, I don't know how good Dimitri Gautas was prior to this season.
Cool hero status now.
Well, he's been excellent so far. He really has. So, yeah, Bullock is certainly doing a great job. I don't think there's any denying that. Let's go to another eye-catching result. Rotherham winning 2-0 at home to Coventry. And we've given Rotherham plenty of stick about how poor they've been so far, Justin, but this was by far and away their best performance, I would say.
Best performance going forward by miles. They look so threatening. There are so many questions of Ben Wilson. They took the goals really well. That Rathbone goal was brilliant. Yeah. Again, you just love a drive and you hit it into the ground and it comes back up.
I just love it. No chance. When you've got a striker who's, as composed enough as Georgie Kelly in that situation to just chest it down and it just looks properly beautiful.
Well, that's why I love Root on football sometimes, because it's just great. I know it wasn't a Root on goal
all the time.
got a sick love for it. But they were fantastic, and they kept a clean sheet in the process. And I know Johansson had to make a few saves, but it was an open game that could have got out of Rotherham's control. And the impressive thing is they didn't allow it. They took the chances when it came. Just annoyed that it didn't come last weekend when I backed them as my outsider, and obviously the game was postponed. But nonetheless, they showed up here in this game and took the game to Coventry, and they made it really difficult for them. And fair play to them, because they, like you said, like you pointed out, they have been dreadful.
Yeah, they have been dreadful, and Rotherham fans have disagreed with us, but I don't know what they're watching if they disagree with us, because they have been dreadful. And while they were relying quite a bit on Victor Johansson in goal, at the other ends, they were still testing Ben Wilson plenty in the Coventry goal. So this was so much better. It's so much better than what we've seen from Rotherham so far. If they play like this more often, they'll have a great chance of staying up. It is worth remembering it is just one game in 13. They've been pretty poor in just about every game so far. But this was more like the Rotherham of last season. And that's certainly a good thing, even though they stayed up, not by the skin of their teeth, but whatever level is above that. It's still much better than what we've seen so far. Coventry down to 20th, Justin. I'm not really sure what's happening at Coventry. It looked like they had turned a corner, but it's now back-to-back losses. Really not going well at all, despite spending heavily in the summer. We'll have more of a chat about that at the weekend, I imagine. Plymouth got back to winning ways by beating Sheffield Wednesday 3-0. Their first win in 5. They had dropped down to 21st after the weekend's games, but I just don't see them being in trouble at all, Justin. When I saw them in 21st at the weekend, I was thinking that's a false position. Is 18th in the table a bit more like it? I'm not too sure, but definitely not that low.
No. Well, I would back them to be fine. I don't want to throw too much weight behind it just yet, but they're certainly 3 worse teams than them. But I do expect them to rise at the table as well, because they've got so much talent going forwards. You've only got to look at the goals that they scored. Morgan Whittaker's goal, the way he took it, the way it opened up Sheffield Wednesday defence was quality. Ryan Hardy as well, his finish was fantastic, and the free kick that he scored as well. There's a lot of quality in the team, and I don't think you can really discount that from games going forwards. Yes, they're going to be blown away sometimes, but they're a new young side that haven't invested heavily. They've invested heavily for them, but they haven't invested heavily in the grand scheme of the the division. So I think again they're going to go through the motions. They're going to keep going through the motions, but as long as they're above 21st, 21st.
Yep, you've got it.
Yeah. How does the championship work? As long as they're above that bottom three, come the end of the season, they won't care. But they'll get results along the way and entertain doing it, and that's all you can ask.
Yeah, I don't think they will care if they literally just stay up 21st by goal difference come the end of the season. I just think they're so much better than that. Going forwards, they are one of the best teams in the division, I think. It's just how leaky they've been at the back, and their away form's been a big problem as well. But considering it's Steven Schumacher, who is a manager I rate quite highly, I'd like to think they will tighten up as the season goes on. And you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they were to finish mid-table nowhere near the relegation zone, because I just think in terms of the talent they've got, there's a lot there to like with Plymouth. And maybe the January transfer window might be a big thing for them as well, considering their recruitment is so spot on. So, yeah, with regards to them being 3 worse teams than them, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think there's more than 3 teams worse than them. It's just going to be interesting to see how things tick along and whether they do tighten up at the back and can have a bit of a, quite a standout season in the grand scheme of things. Wednesday stuck on 3 points, continue to break records for the poorest start ever at this level after so many games. Just really rolling in the deep now, aren't they? Having said that, they weren't that bad against Plymouth, despite the scoreline. So at least the new manager isn't just letting them roll over like they were before. Blackburn have made it 3 wins in a row after coming from a goal down to beat Millwall 2-1. What a goal by Callum Britton, his first goal for Blackburn too. Doesn't score many, but that was a beautiful. That was a proper beautiful finish. Blackburn aside to keep an eye on, I reckon. They've been great going forwards, but conceded too many at the other ends, kind of like Plymouth actually. If they could just tighten up, could go one step further than last season. They've kind of got to channel what they were defensively last season while also maintaining how good they've been going forward this season, haven't they? It's a fine balance that Johansson has to Johansson, Thomason, sorry. It's because we're talking about Victor Janssen a second ago. Jan Thomason has to balance there, isn't it? Watford won away for the first time in 9 months. They beat Swansea 1-0 thanks to a beauty from Ken Seamer. Swansea did have a goal disallowed here for something. I've watched it several times. I have no idea what it was for just, and then Watford went up the other end and scored. But without a doubt, a huge win for the Hornets and Valerian Ismail, considering he was under a bit of pressure. And a 96th minute equaliser from Southampton saw them draw 2-2 away at Preston. Their goalkeeper, Gavin Bazunu, celebrated it. And I thought we had one of the most beautiful things in football, Justin. A goalkeeper scoring a goal, but unfortunately it was an own goal, brutally snatched away from us by Ched Evans, although some people are saying Brad Potts. It was a Preston player, whatever the case. A great goal by Kyle Walker-Peters as well, by the way. That was a really special. Let's have a look ahead to the weekend. So in each midweek episode of the second tier, Justin and I will each pick a banker, a team we think is guaranteed to win this coming weekend, as well as an outsider. So someone we think is going to win, but is bigger odds with the bookies than their opponents. We're tracking how we do as the season goes on. It's 1 point for a correct banker, 2 points for an outsider. Whoever loses has to do a forfeit, which will be a coach trip from Sunderland to Plymouth and back for Justin Peach, and a CrossFit workout for myself. And I'm very unfit. The current scores are 12-9 to myself. No change in the scores, which is in large part down to the Rotherham v Ipswich game being postponed. And I think we'll just add on that score when that game is replayed. Justin, is that fair?
It's fair, but for example, Rotherham, they might have an injury crisis. This is the whole thing about games being postponed. What happens? But okay, fair enough. Sympathy. Great, thank you.
It's football, isn't it? I think that game has been replayed on the 8th, so not that far away.
All I'm saying, I just hope you don't pick a ground that is next to a river when it's rainy season.
It's not something I considered. I'll remember that in the future. Or just don't pick Rotherham, because Rotherham, if there's ever a game that's waterlogged, it always seems to be Rotherham at the Championship, doesn't it? Anyway, just to watch your banker.
I've gone with Leeds to win at home to Huddersfield. I'm a little bit more confident in this one after Huddersfield's dismal showing against Cardiff midweek, but that does come with a warning. Teams don't really like to repeat themselves, but you're looking at Leeds' home form as well. Home form, won the last 3 at home, look incredibly healthy going forward in terms of squad balance. I know they lost against Stoke, but they were a penalty away from in my opinion, picking up the 3 points. And I just think that competition that's coming in is that final third is going to make things more fierce and ultimately get a lot more out of them. And I say Huddersfield are going to be smarting after the win, which might make it a little bit more difficult. It's a derby as well, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But Leeds is home form. Got to back them.
Form goes out the window in a derby. That's all I'm going to say. My banker is Leicester to win away at QPR on Saturday. Don't really need to explain this one to us. Leicester are excellent and QPR are shite. It'd be a massive turn for the Bucks if we see anything else here. My outsider is Bristol City to win away at Cardiff in the 7-side derby. I've gone for this one because it is a derby and it just tends to come down to whoever wants it the most. Having said that, there is a bit of logic to this. Bristol City have a good recent record at Cardiff in this fixture. Why are you laughing?
You're just throwing cliches around. Get out of here.
As I was saying, Bristol City have a good recent record at Cardiff in this fixture. They've won 3 of the last 4 derbies there, so I'll go for a Bristol City victory. And your outsider, Justin?
I've gone with Swansea to win away at Blackburn. It's quite a risk because Blackburn are picked up in form, but Swansea were unbeaten in the last 3 away games and won the last 2. Michael Duff, despite losing to Leicester last weekend, they have still looked good. And the energy side of things for me is a big factor, and I think they're gonna try and run Blackburn into the ground and probably come away with a clean sheet. It's a big draw that I don't need to really throw in there. I think Blackburn may have lost Dom Heim to injury. That could potentially swing things in Swansea's favour as well.
Swansea lost back-to-back games, but he's still back in it, ladies and gentlemen. Now it's time for this.
Scott High or Ryan Lowe?
Your best is fucking shit, mate.
Yes, it's time for Scott High or Ryan Lowe. This is the game where we have to rank 4 things from highest to lowest. It is as simple as that. There's 3 questions, and this week there's 5 questions for me. So what have you got for me, Justin Peach, you bastard?
The first question, I want you to rank these sides for highest possession so far this season. QPR, Preston, Millwall, Rotherham.
A load of teams who do not like possession. I'll go. I reckon Millwall will be top of that. It's between Millwall and Preston, I think. Millwall, Preston, QPR, Rotherham.
Balls, he's done it.
Have I? Oh.
Yeah, you've done it. I was hoping.
I think you separate the 2 of them, because it was between Millwall and Preston for the top and then QPR and Rotherham for the bottom. I wasn't too sure, but just managed to get my ducks in a row.
It's close. It is a close one. Millwall have got 43%, and to put that into perspective, Rotherham got 34%.
My God.
No football for us.
A third of possession in games. That is outrageous, isn't it?
Yes, it's not ideal. Not ideal. Would you want the second question? You're on a roll, so why not? Let's get straight into it.
I would love to.
I want you to rank these sides in order of their biggest away following. It's total away attendance, by the way. So they're cumulative away attendance so far this season. Yes, not all time. I don't have those numbers. Leicester, Leeds, Birmingham, Watford.
Leicester, Leeds, Birmingham, Watford. Okay, well, Leeds always travel well, don't they? As they like to tell people all the time. I'll go... So I'm just looking at the away table now. Blackburn have played a game more than Leicester.
Blackburn?
Yeah.
I didn't say Blackburn. Birmingham.
Oh, sorry. I don't know where I got Blackburn from. Where
cheating and doing it badly.
Well, I'm using logic.
No. Just logic in your brain, not on the computer.
Birmingham tend to travel well as well. But will Leicester have... I think Leicester will be above Birmingham. So I'll go Leeds, Leicester, Birmingham, Watford. And I reckon if one's going to do me there, it's going to be Birmingham and Leicester.
This is going to surprise you, but you're terribly wrong here.
Am I?
Terribly wrong.
Wow.
All out of place. Watford are top with 25,000 so far.
Huh?
And Leeds with 24,000. Yeah.
I mean, Leeds no disrespect to Watford, but what the fuck?
Yeah, Watford top 25,000, Leeds 24,000, then Birmingham with 21,000, then Leicester with 20,000. Now there are so many variables you've got to think of. It's the amount of away games they've played, the distances they've had to travel, etc.
Well, I'm just looking at it now. They've travelled to Cardiff, Swansea, Sunderland. and Leeds.
It's quite
It's quite
big away
far.
days. Yeah, fair enough.
Doesn't make any sense to me. All right, then, fair enough. I don't think I would have ever got that because I would have never put Watford anywhere other than bottom in that. Final one, then, Justin.
I want you to give me the most popular zoos in the UK.
Oh, go on then.
Based
I
on
like
attendance. No, you did. That's why I picked this one. Edinburgh Zoo, Twycross Zoo, West Midlands Safari Park, and Colchester Zoo.
Oh, now you've got to kind of keep in mind here the distance of respective other zoos. So with that being said, I'm not sure there's many near Colchester. So that might be quite high. West Midlands Safari Park is packed all the time. I've been there a few times, and every time I've been there, it is packed. Edinburgh Zoo, I think Edinburgh Zoo might be top. Because is that the biggest zoo? I'm not sure. Never been, so I wouldn't know. I'd go Edinburgh Zoo top. You said Twycross, didn't you?
I did.
Twycross is tiny. So I won't put that very high. I'd go Edinburgh, West Mids, Colchester, Twycross.
You only got one in there. I'd have stuck with your logic because that's actually really good logic that you went with. Colchester Zoo is top.
Is it?
I don't know if there are any other zoos around it, but I imagine it's quite isolated. It's very good logic. West Midlands Safari Park is then second. It's very popular, I imagine, because you just drive in with your cars. It's dead easy. Edinburgh Zoo is third, and then Twycross Zoo is last, which I thought that surprised me because they've got elephants at Twycross Zoo. I've not been to a zoo in years. I don't know what goes on in these things.
No, Twycross is quite small in comparison to other zoos. I didn't know enough about Edinburgh Zoo, unfortunately. I don't know how big it is. For some reason, I had it in my head that it might be the biggest, but it's clearly not. So there you go. However, I don't know how many zoos are in Scotland. So there's plenty of variables. You've got to
so many variables.
I failed.
You did. You failed. Big start, and then it just went downhill. And unfortunately for you,
like Norwich City.
Like Norwich City.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's Scott High or Ryan Lowe. And this has been the Second Tier Podcast. A big thank you for listening wherever you are. And if you wouldn't mind, just a quick one between you and me, listener, if you wouldn't mind giving us a 5-star review, it goes a long way to helping us grow as a podcast. It only takes a second of your time and helps us go a long way to growing as a podcast. So if you wouldn't mind just doing that, please do it for me. I'll do it for Justin if you don't like
it. Do it.
This has been the Second Tier Podcast. We'll be back again on Sunday for a review of all the weekend games in the Championship. So bloody look forward to seeing you then. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a gigantic thank you for listening.